welcome to the N.E.R.D. Never Ending Ridiculous Discussions podcast. I am your host this week, Kayla Smith, and I am joined by my co host, Dominic Spizziri. How are you doing this lovely day, Dominic?
What's up, everybody? And I'm doing great. Your intro is getting so much better now that we're doing this for the third time today.
You know, I can't be blamed for the first bad cut. You didn't start
Mm-hmm.
recording.
And you somehow shut off your computer, which I have a lot of questions about. How did that happen?
There's a power strip connected to the side of my standing desk, and I
Mm.
had my legs crossed. It hit the on off switch and everything just shut down.
Well, third time's a charm. Three is actually my lucky number, so let's hope we have a flawless episode.
Wait, 3 is my lucky number too. I was born March 3rd, so 3 3.
Oh, well, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, so we make a good pair. Anyway, today, viewers for the first time, we have a Marvel heavy episode, which Dominic and I are really excited to talk about. We're going to be talking about the last 3 episodes of Loki, season 1, because at the very end of the last episode, a season 2 was confirmed, which I am really excited for. We will also be covering Black Widow, which I saw for the first time yesterday because I didn't have time while I was in Florida. And hopefully we'll have a little bit of time to talk about Space Jam as well as anything new that we watched in the interim that we just don't have time to pack into the episode. So, let's get this train rolling. It's going to be packed. Loki, end of the season spoilers if you have not already watched it. If you have not watched it, you don't want to be spoiled, skip to Black Widow or Space Jam. All
Really
right.
spoiled that too.
So, the end of the season for the third time.
3 episodes, 3 tries.
Okay. I was blown away by the last 3 episodes. I was hounding you to watch episode 4 after what a disappointment episode 3 was. And you didn't want to watch it. Give me your impressions, because I remember I watched episode 4. I was really annoyed initially because I was frustrated with the direction that they were taking Loki. I felt like the whole love plot was just kind of, it felt like it was being kind of forced on us after the end of episode 3 and the beginning of episode 4. But then Tom Hiddleston doing what he always does to me in Marvel, he completely flipped me, and now I entirely love that plot point, and I love what they did with the end of the season. What were some of your thoughts, Dominic?
Well, as usual, Marvel typically does this, because I know like in phase 2 there was definitely a period where I was like, all right, these movies are starting to get a little rough. There was a few of them in a row, Thor: Dark World, that really didn't hit it for me. And as usual, Marvel, the second they put me off a little bit, they pull me right back in. And you were totally right about hounding me to watch episode 4, because episode 4, 5, and 6 are all just incredible. All the character introductions, the Loki variant, getting Kane, the Conqueror, the very first kind of image of him through the One Who Remains, so not the actual like character. And it's clear evidence that we're going to see a lot more of him throughout series. We're going to get multiple different versions of him, which is just so cool, especially near the ending of episode 6, where I know like you still had a lot of questions about where is Loki? Like, why doesn't Mobius recognize him? And how are the timekeepers, who are androids, by the way? Like, we didn't even talk about that. That was the ending of episode 4. And there's just so many questions. And this show did probably one of the top shows I've ever ended where I've been like, I need a season 2 now, and that usually doesn't happen that often. So this was a fantastic show. I think it did an excellent job ending the last 3 episodes.
Yeah, I think that bodes really well that we got 2 shows 2 weeks in a row, starting with Sweet Tooth, where we were like, we want season 2 right now, and then immediately the following week we finished up Loki, and again, I need season 2 right now. And how crazy is it that after episode 4 and the revelation that the timekeepers aren't real, that's not the craziest thing that happens this season.
No, not at all.
Like, it just, I mean, and you can do that with Loki because he has this ability to be this trickster, mischief maker. They've already established that you can mess with timelines. And
Mhm.
they did it beautifully in a way that doesn't feel tired or overwrought or overdone. I mean, it it was just really, really impressive. You find out that everybody at the TVA are variants, which again, you think, okay, there we go. That's a really wild revelation. And then they discover that the timekeepers, which apparently Ravana was also not in on, are not real. And Mobius and Loki both get pruned by Ravana, who comes out swinging out of nowhere. Although I could have told you she was a little shady. Um, and Sylvie manages to manipulate her and more just incredible, well developed, strong female characters. She prunes herself. She can't be sure if Ravana's lying to her or not at that point. She
Mhm.
could have just completely committed, she could have just narked herself and we wouldn't know. She wouldn't have known for sure because at what point can you really trust what she's saying at any given point?
Yeah, the developments between all the characters are just kind of insane. Particularly like our main Loki, um, who went through like the first 10 years of Marvel, went through it in a matter of a month. You know, all that kind of character development, and then we have Sylvia, which is one thing I really actually kind of I love that fight at the end of episode 6, and I know that's something you really wanted to point out. And I like how different they are. Whereas a lot of the Lokis kind of had, well, I guess not all of them, but some of the ones they focused on, particularly the classic kind of older Loki who had his glorious purpose. Um,
Right.
a lot of them had this like kind of quick development to really what they needed, and I like the fact that Sylvia is kind of on the opposite side. Like she is, you know, full of revenge and anger, which is something you really don't get. And especially, I really can't name that many female characters that really have that kind of arc. You know, I really feel like that's kind of reserved for, I mean, probably your typical male character. But I really like the fact that it was like Loki was the one who kind of went a different path, kind of the one we're more used to seeing him as. So, which is something I know you really wanted. You One thing you were frustrated with was seeing this Loki regress back to what he used to be, because he, well, was that Loki in the beginning. Because he is, he never went through any of that development um,
Yeah.
near the end of it. And I do like the fact that Sylvia, like kicked him out back to some TVA? Is it an alternate TVA? Like, we really have no idea. Um, and then she obviously kills the one who remains and just opens up so many doors. And I think like the big question that a lot of people have is like, now what? One big question I keep thinking is, what's next for Sylvia? What is she going to do? Is she going to take the mantle, or is she going to be a more villainous character now? Is she going to be like, is she actually going to be the big bad? Like, could Thane be a red herring, or I'm sorry, Kane be a red herring? And they introduce like somebody else as the big bad villain. And keep in mind, we still have Scarlet Witch out there. We don't know where she is or what she's doing, and she definitely seems to be taking the more villainous road at the ending of WandaVision. So there's so many questions about where this show's going, where this universe is going. And this one just throws like 10 more on top of it.
Absolutely. I kind of disagree with you on the Scarlet Witch front. I think that,
Hmm.
at the end of the show, you see her deciding to go off and figure out where she's going next with her life. And I think
Hmm.
she's trying to find a way to make better choices because I personally got the sense that she really understood the gravity of what she did by trapping all of those people in that small town and that she can't do that anymore. I'd really love to see more of Catherine Hahn, and I don't know if we're going to get that, which makes me sad. But as far as Loki and Sylvie are concerned, I think absolutely with Sylvie as becoming a potential anti-hero, it kind of
Hmm.
seems like she's almost taking up the spot that Tom Hiddleston's Loki had taken because Tom Hiddleston's Loki is now trying to again, make better choices. He's starting to work through some of his demons and move forward with his life. And Sylvie's not there yet. She's not capable of those things, which is part of what made this explosive season finale so interesting to me, because it didn't feel like a normal Marvel finale for a movie, for a TV show. It's not, all right, let's have big explosions, destruction of cities, or this massive big fighting sequence. And most of the episode is spent in conversation about the implications of what they're learning and the implications of their choices and what happens if they make these choices. And for me, the biggest heartbreak, although, you know, Sylvie choosing not to trust Loki and sending him off into the universe was heartbreaking. The biggest heartbreak for
Hmm.
me was Mobius not remembering Loki. That was a really, I think, important relationship touchstone for him that now he's lost. He's not with his Mobius who understands who he is, and the Mobius that he's speaking with at the end doesn't even recognize him as a Loki, which just seems completely insane to me, because the TVA was aware of all of these other Lokis in the universe.
Yeah, and I know that was one question you had was, is this like a different universe TVA? Which the show, by all means, made it evident that that's not how this universe works. That there was one TVA, and then there was multiple like the sacred timeline like surrounding it, and they were able to see all
Hmm.
the deviant paths. It's not like multiple TVAs work. So when our Loki, gets sent back to this one, it it like throws this question out there, like, wait, what's going on? Like, is it because there's multiple threads now, that there's multiple TVAs? Is it actually, no, there is a multiple universe and this is the second one out there? Or um is this the new TVA, like, because, and this again, this is just such the weird thing, we get into this like whole timeline thing. Like, when does the TVA exist? Because there is no when for the TVA. It's eternal, it's infinite, right? It goes throughout time. Um, and does them killing the one who remains like reset a time? Like, it's very convoluted, and we have so many questions. So and I agree with you. It is a heartbreak. Like when Mobius looked at him and asked like, "What's his badge number?" Like who are you?
Yeah.
And then you see the statue of, obviously, King the Conqueror there. You can't
Yeah.
help but sit down and go, "Wait, what?" You have so many questions, and um, I really can't wait till they dive into this more. And I guess my big question is, when do we get to see more of this? Obviously, we have Shang-Chi coming out in September. We have Eternals in, I think, November. And then Spider-Man No Way Home is coming out in December, which we kind of got confirmation, mostly rumors, but like some confirmation that it's going to touch on the big thing. But will Eternals, will Shang-Chi, or are we not going to see this till the new Doctor Strange, which I believe is 2022, or maybe later than that. Um, I don't know exactly what the exact date for Doctor Strange 2 is, but it really adds so many questions. I'm kind of anxiously wanting to see this. And it does, I don't know about you, but it kind of throws into like Shang-Chi. Like last week we talked about that trailer with Abomination in it. Like, is this the same universe that we're used to? Are we seeing mostly just one timeline? Or are some of these movies going to be revealed like, oh, actually, Shang-Chi is in a different timeline now, and this is only happening because of Loki? Do you think they would do that, or do you think that's too complicated for the mainstream audience that they're going for?
I don't think so. And I think one of the beautiful things is that Marvel has now developed a trust with their audience of saying,
Yeah,
hey, take this. You might not understand it yet, but trust us. Give us a little bit of leash, and we promise we'll make this good for you. And it's really interesting that you brought up this idea that potentially some of these characters are not even in the timeline as we know it, because when I went to go see Black Widow, they played the Shang-Chi trailer, and the first thing that popped into my head after this Loki finale was that this might be on a completely different branch, because you see him in this very mystical kind of Eastern influenced world. And yes, it very well could be on the planet Earth that we know it, that exists with the Avengers. But I think it's also very possible that it could not, and that it could work really, really well. Um, Obviously, I'm really excited because that means that a lot of this kind of fan pushing for Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man are going to get to interact with Tom, not Tom Hiddleston, the other Tom Holland, Tom Holland's Spider-Man. And while Tom Holland's Spider-Man has personally been my favorite, I grew up with these guys. So them kind of playing into that fan service a little bit feels natural, and it feels okay to do that in this way that they're going to start interlocking all of these universes into each other.
Hmm.
We've obviously got confirmation that Scarlet Witch and Loki will be making an appearance in Multiverse of Madness. Also very excited for that. But again, you get this real sense that now Loki is right here at the center of it. And just as he started to find this stability, now he needs to scramble again to try to not just, I think he wants to move past just surviving and move towards living, really living his life. Um, and he was getting that with Sylvie. They had plans to start moving forward and living and becoming people and finding this own strength that he didn't realize that they had. That was one of my favorite lines from him in episode 5, I believe, is when he is looking at her. He's watching this kind of OG Loki in tights raise up this entire city, and they're both confused. And that's the first time that I think Loki realizes the scope of the power that he has within him, because he says, I think we have more power than we even realize, which is an incredible jumping off point. What can he do? What is he capable of that we haven't seen? Because he mostly fights with, his sticks, and he's had a little bit of like people substitution and whatnot, but now he's learning he can potentially take over people's minds. He's learning that he could be very strong. He can raise up entire cities. He could have substituted his entire body for a piece of rock and have survived Thanos. The scope just seems completely wide, and the field is completely open, and I'm really excited to see how Sylvie goes from here, because now she's pushed Loki away. She has kind of made that, albeit typical trope of I love you but I can't.
Yeah,
And
and
where they're going to take all of these threads.
that's kind of what I was just thinking. Like, where could they take Loki, and will his character actually go there? So I was like,
Right.
while you were talking, I was sitting there like, I don't know if I want Loki to go back to Asgard and kind of be the typical character. I think if they're going to keep Loki in here, I really like the idea of him kind of. I don't really know what they're going to do with the TVA, or if they're going to keep it. Is he going to kind of run that over again and kind of reset it to something else? Um, and I love the idea that like they could almost do anything they want with Loki. Um, and I don't know about you, but I think it sounds way more fascinating with them not putting him back in the same situation at all. I really like keeping him within the TVA, and they're probably going to do that because obviously he's got so many questions now. Now he knows about the Kangs, the multiverse, and he's going to be looking for Sylvia. Um, and I feel like there's such an awesome direction they could go with this character, and this overall plot point. And I'm happy you brought up that all these characters are going to be in Multiverse of Madness, because that movie went from like super exciting because Doctor Strange was an awesome character to now
Right.
it's like that's the number one Marvel movie I want to see. Like above Spider. Granted, we haven't seen a trailer for Spider-Man yet, which is surprising. That movie's coming out December, and we still haven't seen anything, which kind of makes me think something is happening in Shang-Chi. Like maybe they're holding it back for specific reasons. They don't spoil anything, but that's just speculation at this point.
Marvel has given themselves a lot of rope with this Loki finale. They
Hmm.
just need to be careful that they don't hang themselves with it. Now, I have a lot of faith in them. I am incredibly excited for Multiverse of Madness. I am really hyped for Shang-Chi,
Mm-hmm.
um, just for what it could be. We don't really know where it fits into all of this, but I'm really excited for Shang-Chi. And there's just there's a multiverse of options for them, and I'd bet that part of the reason that we haven't seen anything for Spider-Man is because they still haven't actually confirmed. I think that we're actually going to be seeing Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man No Way Home. I think that this has all just been fans piecing things together off of little bits of photos and bits of news, but Marvel still has not come right out and said, yes, this is what we're doing. And they want to keep it. I'm gonna guess that there's a lot of stuff that's still under wraps that we just have no idea about. I did not expect to like WandaVision. I did not expect to like Falcon and the Winter Soldier,
Mhm.
and now I am really, really excited for both of those. I was hyped for Loki. I went and got disappointed, and now I'm hyped again because they're just fantastic storytellers, and I'm really happy, honestly, that this is the first phase coming out where you don't have Stanley involved. And I was thinking about that when I was rewatching Loki with my boyfriend over the span of one whole day, where I was like, wow, this is the first time that we're really not getting his influence. We're not getting his cameos. He's not helping out. He's not meeting these new actors that are doing new things with these characters. And they seem like they've got a good grasp on it, which is it's really lightning, and it makes my heart warm.
Oh yeah, and I think this all kind of boils back down to I'm assuming the team that they probably have been working on this forever. I mean, obviously Kevin Feige's been with kind of heading this series for years now. I don't think it's 10 years, but you know, it's got to be at least 5 or 6 by now. But yeah, I agree with you. Um, that they're overall doing this, I think, very solidly. Um, every every single story I think overall is good. Like even the worst Marvel movie is in my opinion, a good movie. You know, I know a lot of people would probably say the first Thor or Thor Dark World are usually the ones that people kind of go attack the most as being like the worst Marvel movies. And honestly, I kind of agree. I think they are probably the weaker films of the franchise, but I would
Yeah.
still watch those any day compared to, you know, name your average movie out there. I would rather watch those than, Jumper or like Looper or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Movies that came out around that time. So even then, like I none of these movies are ever like a waste of time, or these TV shows now are never a waste of time or anything like that. The fact that they're expanding um, to an infinite tier is incredible. Um,
Yeah.
I do feel bad for those who don't have Disney Plus, who only want to watch the movies, who are probably thinking, "Oh, these TV shows don't mean anything for the general plot."
And
And
they do.
I know they mean so much. Like we're getting these, and I don't know, and you probably forgot about this. We have White Vision out there somewhere. That character, was introduced, and obviously now we have Sam Wilson as Captain America. Um,
Right.
which that's like that series I can understand. Like probably the least effective. Like it's pretty easy to sit down and go, okay, he's Captain America now, and okay, we have U.S. Agent. Uh, not as much happened in that series. I'm sure someone could
Hmm.
argue that at least a newcomer could sum up, but like you can't sum up White Vision. You know, like how are we supposed to say, oh, there's a new Vision now? What? Why? Like that's a hard one to push together. And then now we have Loki, which I couldn't explain that to somebody who's seeing the next Marvel movie but skip all the TV shows. Like, how am I supposed to explain all of this? You have to sit down and watch it. And I hope it's not a detriment to the Marvel universe. Obviously, millions of people are watching TV shows, but
Right.
not everyone is like you and me, where we are watching it the day it comes out. Exception of episode 4. I'm sorry, but still, it. I do agree with you though. This is all super exciting, and that's why we have another movie we're going to be talking about. Like, there's just so
Right.
much.
Right. Obviously, the end of Loki is incredibly, incredibly important, and you could tell somebody before they go into Multiverse of Madness and say, "Well, two Lokis blew up the timeline, and now we have a multiverse." And I guess you could just accept that at face value, but the implications of that are going to be you miss all of the character development because that last episode is so tense, and this is kind of the last I want to hit on it because we're about hitting the halfway mark.
Mhm.
But it's not a typical Marvel finale. It's not all explosions and blood and gore and hey, let's kill the bad guy. It's very much a question of, is he the bad guy? Why is he the bad guy? What happens if we kill him? And that fight scene and that long that this whole finale of them just discussing the implications of yes and no, of choices and choice making was completely brilliant
Mm,
on my in my opinion. I really really loved it. I cannot recommend the show more enough. I would recommend binging it now that it's fully out. Falcon and the Winter Soldier obviously has its place for different
mm,
reasons, and but the two most obvious tie-ins really feel like Wanda
mm,
and Loki. However, Falcon and the Winter Soldier did address this idea that Captain Rogers is not the only super soldier, which doesn't seem that important until you realize that Natasha Romanoff's quote unquote father, Alexei, was the Russian Captain America. He was the Red Guardian.
mm.
So, I mean, this feels like a perfect transition to me. I did not have the same feelings that you did about Black Widow. I it was my first movie back in theaters, which I'm sure had something to do with it, and I had so much fun. I the feeling of being back in a theater obviously had part of it. It just the crashes and the booms. At one point there's a jet that comes overhead and I literally ducked. I looked at my friend, I was like, I forgot how joyful it is to be in a theater, and it really felt like a nice first trip back to the theater. I laughed a lot. I loved Florence Pugh as Yelena. I loved David Harbour as their father, Alexei. Melina was also she was really nice. I wish that we had gotten to see a little bit more of her because she seems to be the most intelligent out of the four of them.
Mm.
And there seems to be the most going on there because you get this idea that she doesn't have the same choices that Yelena and Natasha had because she said that she had been cycled through the Red Room 4 times and she was now one of Dreykov, who is the antagonist's closest advisors. So how do you just break out of that? I would have been a lot. I would have been really interested to see a lot more about her and why she is the way she is. Because as you kind of mentioned, we never really get an explanation for what the Red Room is. We don't get a whole lot of information on how they're doing this mental conditioning and afterwards this, kind of taking over of their brains and their ability to control themselves and their free will.
Yeah. And to kind of comment on because you mentioned like my thoughts on it. Like we had a previous conversation about this, and to be honest, I wasn't crazy about this film. This is definitely for me personally a lower tier Marvel movie. I think this film regressed a lot, kind of. Um, just for start, like mostly have like two kind of big issues with it, and then a bunch of kind of tiny issues. Um, like one tiny issue is the main antagonist, Dreykov, kind of your typical Marvel villain at this point. I What was his intentions? Like, we really don't know anything about it. It's just, hey, he's the bad guy, and he makes Black Widows. He steals women and trains them to be his overall, uh, like personal bodyguard, kind of secret agent kind of thing. And like, obviously, he's a bad dude, but like, he's just your typical antagonist in a floating castle guy. And it just like he wasn't really that great in my opinion. I didn't really like. Yeah, I want him stopped, but he's not some of the Marvels like especially recent Marvel having really good antagonists like the one Spider Man, obviously Thanos, and then I don't remember his name, but the antagonist in Black Panther is one of my favorite ones. And this one just felt like another run of the mill phase one antagonist. Um, but I think one of the biggest mishaps in this movie is the fact that this is a Black Widow movie, and kind of like you were saying, we really didn't get anything about the Red Room. We didn't get any scenes about it. It's once again, it's something they just keep talking about, and we still know nothing about it. They only reference what happens inside, um, and then when you're actually in the Red Room, it's just you see a training room and then a big office building, and then a couple other hallways. So like it really. you really don't see like what do they do to these girls. Um, they never really talk about it. Even it could have been like a showing, but not telling us. You could have just had a room that like, okay, we all know what happens here, but like we didn't see that kind of thing. And I feel like that's just a lost cause. Because for this, and I'm sure I was going to be long winded, but I have a lot of negative aspects of the movie. I don't feel like this movie did anything for Black Widow, for Natasha Romanoff as a character. Um, like she for the last 10 years we've known about her having all this red in her ledger, and she's done some bad things, she's trying to clear it up, and you find out that the one thing that she did was kill Dracoff, which has been a bad character the entire time, daughter, on basically on purpose. She let a bomb go off to kill him while his daughter was in the room. Well, somehow he survived. I don't think they actually explained how he survived. And his daughter also survived with a little bit of like skin damage, but other than that, perfectly fine. And she basically has been living with this guilt that she purposely killed his daughter. And
Mhm.
you later find out that his daughter, and spoiler warning, his daughter is obviously alive and is Taskmaster, who is the main kind of like bad guy force, like kind of the henchman of the movie. And Taskmaster is essentially like a super Black Widow, um, and that's kind of the big like character twist. And to me, I feel like that writes off every single moment we've had with Natasha Romanoff in the last 10 years. That you just resorted all this pain and anguish to things she's been fighting for. Oh well, she's actually alive and she's just a bad guy now, and that's it. Like she had no reason to feel guilt because let's be honest, Dreykov probably would have made his daughter Black Widow anyway, judging by his character. Because there's really nothing more about him. He's an evil guy and he's evil. That's all we know about him. Uh, and I feel like this movie, like for her, for specifically Natasha Romanoff, felt pointless. I kind of just didn't think it really did anything for her. When it ended, I was more just thinking about the fact that okay, her sister Yelena is in here. Her mother, who is the woman from the Mummy, by the way. I don't know if you realize that. And
Oh.
then obviously Hopper being her father. Just the introduction of these new characters, and we have a bunch of new Black Widows now. But beyond that, I definitely just didn't feel like this movie really did anything for the Black Widow character. That's my long-winded rant. Still a good movie. It's fun. I agree with you there. It has its funny moments, but I think when I really boil it down, this is not a Marvel movie I personally want to watch again.
So actually, on the opposite side of the coin, I would love to watch Black Widow again and kind of pick up some of the pieces that I wasn't able to get the first time around. And that's because you brought up the fact that we really didn't see the Red Room. And
Mhm,
the more that I think about it, the more I like how they did it. Um, so, for viewers and listeners who don't know anything about me, I used to volunteer with a program called Stepping Stones, and we worked with men and women who had been affected by sexual assault, abuse, that kind of stuff. So, I would counsel women over the phone. I'd go meet them at the hospital if they were having like a kit done and talk to them, and I had to learn a lot about trauma and how we process trauma in the brain as a result. So the more that I think about it, the more that I like it, because you're getting these flashes of kind of how and what they were doing in the Red Room. But I truly believe that knowing that these characters and these people aren't ever really given space to explore these things that have happened to them, that have been done to them, like this hysterectomy that was done clearly to both Yelena and Natasha, that they wouldn't be sitting there going, let's talk about it. Let's talk about what happened in the Red Room. They absolutely would not be. They would be either making a flip comment about it, or they would be remembering this in flashes and trying not to remember these atrocities that were done to them. So the more I think about it, the more I like that.
mhm,
I loved Alexei. I loved Yelena a lot. I agree with you that this didn't feel like it was a movie for Natasha. I think Marvel had a very clear goal, and that was to introduce Alexei Molina and Yelena into the story, and that this became not a movie about Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff. I think that this was more intended to be a Black Widow Yelena movie and introducing Florence Pugh into the franchise. All that being said, I agree with you that Dracoff, even his name, Dracoff, it's kind of like a silly cartoon villain
Mhm.
character. You don't really get a whole great perspective on why he wants to have control over all of the world's governments other than for control and power, which has been there, done that. Um, but I really like this idea that Natasha, who, you know, she talked with Bruce Banner about the fact that she couldn't have kids, and
Mhm.
that seemed to make her sad. She talks with Clint throughout the first phases, that she has all this red in her ledger, and kind of seeing her have to grapple with that and realize that sometimes she makes choices and they don't work, that she has had to make these choices, and how many other people has she potentially done this kind of thing to, and have they made it out, and seeing how this has affected specifically these other women in this situation. So I really liked seeing Florence Pugh bring this girl who all she knows is what she's had from the Red Room and her time as a Black Widow, and her grappling with that. These horrible things that she's done to her, and having this person who entirely is like, yeah, what they did to me sucked. That's bad. And you left me. I was alone.
Mm.
Whereas Natasha has been on the other side of that coin going, I just can't even think about that. I know it was wrong. I know it was bad. I know I've done bad things. I know I've had this. The only person that I could have ever considered my sister, I had to leave her. And she just has to bury that all back. All of it actually felt very real and very honest to me, which the more that I'm more surprised that the longer that I think about that, I think that. Now, on the other side of that, Alexi and Melina are great. Their parents are fabulous as far as their acting and what they did with them. But I don't know. I got this really weird sense that maybe when they all sat down for family dinner and then they decided, okay, we are going to be a family, like we are going to do this, that felt a little bit kind of square wheels.
Mhm.
Like we're clunking along here. I didn't totally buy that. Although, again, I guess if you grew up in your formative child years, or three of your formative child years, the only three that you had as a normal child with these two people as your parents, I mean, that's all you know, right? My one big disappointment was that they showed the tree where her Natasha's mother was buried, and Dracoff had told her that the tombstone had read unknown. I don't buy that for a second. Absolutely not. I want to see that tombstone. I want to know who her mother is because I think that we might know who her mother is. Um, and finally, I got so freaking irritated by that cutscene at the end. I hate everything about the fact that Yelena is working with US Agent and that US Agent is manipulating her grief to have Clint taken out. I am really, really interested to see what they're about to do with that. And the more that I see of Julia Louise Dreyfus's character, who plays the U.S. or sorry, she's not. Does she play U.S. Agent? Is that her technical
No.
name?
Uh,
Valentina.
yeah, no, she plays Valentina. U.S. agent was Kyle Walker from
Right.
Falcon. Yeah.
Right. Sorry. So Valentina comes up, and you find out that Yelena is now working with the U.S. government,
Mhm.
except where Natasha was working with the Avengers, where they're doing all the good on the outside. Now they're doing all the dirty work to keep the Avengers being able to do all the good stuff, um, and not have to worry about this kind of backroom dark, less morally clear choices. That makes me sad for Yelena because she worked so hard to get out of the Red Room that you would really hope that she gets a chance to not have to do those kinds of things anymore. And now her grief is being manipulated. And how sad is it that Natasha died on Mount Vormir and she did actually leave behind a family who cared about her?
Yeah, I mean that's just obviously I think that ending scene is just a build up. There's a lot of fan speculation exactly what kind of team Valentina's making. Um,
Hmm.
some people have been like, "Is this the Dark Avengers?" Uh, which I think the name itself is pretty self-explanatory. But we're not really sure. There seems to be a lot of teams building, just not within this movie, but also the TV show. Like throughout the TV shows, we've been introduced to a lot of kid characters, which are all young Avengers in the comic book, like the kid Loki, Isaiah Bradley's uh, nephew, um, which was the old Captain America, like the young guy that was living with him. He is supposed to be part of the Young Avengers, and then obviously we have uh, the kids, Scarlet Witch's kids, both of which are Young Avengers. So there's like that, and then you have Valentina, who's a U.S. agent, and now she's got Yelena, but not just Yelena. I mean, she went off with all of those Black Widows and Alexei. So like, does she have basically an army of Black Widows now, to assist her with certain situations? And you also got to
Yeah.
remember, like, the Avengers themselves are kind of done. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor are off doing their own thing. Iron Man is up no longer around. Captain America's gone. Well, the Steve Rogers is gone, and now we have a new Captain America who is just introduced. But like the Avengers as we know it no longer really exists. It's a
Right.
completely different aspect, which is probably something that Valentina's taking advantage of. She's probably making her own Avengers because she's kind of, when you think about it, she's kind of becoming Samuel L. Jackson's character, whose name escapes me.
Nick Fury.
Fury. Thank you, Nick Fury. She's kind of becoming like a Nick Fury of like a different breed, um, which is really exciting. So I know like that frustrates you, but like obviously Hawkeye, the TV show that's going to be coming out, and Miss Marvel, both of which are Disney says are coming out in 2021.
Yeah.
Hawkeye is probably going to address this. My assumption is, and I'm hoping that we get his daughter uh, also taking up the mantle, which I think might be confirmed. I'm not entirely sure, but we don't really know exactly what's going to be happening in that series yet, but should be coming out this year.
Yeah. And the other thing that you have to consider, though, as
Hmm.
far as how the movie fits in, is that this was supposed to come out Endgame, Spider Man Far From Home, and then Black Widow. It got delayed and delayed again and delayed again. So this is coming
Yeah.
out now after all of these TV shows. And my thought process is that, and I can't, no, WandaVision came out after when Black Widow would have been supposed to be released. So I
Uh,
believe,
I think the exact order is after Spider Man is Black Widow, and then Captain Soldier or wow, Captain and the Winter Soldier, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Jesus, was supposed to be first one, but they couldn't
okay,
get it done in time, so they pushed WandaVision first, and then I think Loki was always meant to be third, but I think Falcon and the Winter Soldier was supposed to be first, then WandaVision, then this, and Val Val's introduction, Valentina's introduction was supposed to be with Black Widow, but obviously, COVID changed everything. So
exactly.
we're seeing things out of order, but
Right.
they still work perfectly fine.
Well, they do, but I would imagine that Black Widow would feel more relevant in the timeline for what it's trying to do if we had gotten that introduction to Valentina first, because now we've
Yeah.
had two end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier cut scene for Black Widow, in which we're getting the sense of what she's doing with US Agent and whatever kind of team she's trying to put together. Because you're right. I mean, after the reveal of Kang and the timeline breaking apart, Black Widow feels absolutely freaking pointless. But
Yeah.
I think it would have been much more successful had it been released on time. And I've been thinking a lot about that because I really enjoyed the movie. I really think that it would have felt more relevant and less pointless
Hmm.
had it been released properly. And I think that I'm gonna put down my guess right now that when eventually we go back and we start rewatching these again as the end of this new phase and this new multiverse thing comes in, if we watch this in timeline order, it's going to be one of those movies where we go back and we go, I like this a lot more. I'm making my bets now. We're going to like this a lot more when we can fit it in properly in the timeline and go back and rewatch it.
See, I'm gonna try to watch it exactly where it takes place in the timelines. Like start Civil War, watch this movie, and then watch the ending of Civil War, and call it a day.
Yeah, you'll have to let me know how that goes. Um,
It's super difficult, but I'm gonna do it.
But yeah, so I like I said, I think it was a really fun movie. I absolutely think, and that's a nice thing about Marvel is that even though Dominic and I are talking about some of the issues that we had of it, even though he has problems
Mhm.
with it, um, is this an S tier Marvel movie? No. Is this an A tier Marvel movie? Probably not. But I would say it fits in probably B or C tier. But here's the thing, is that a C or D, even a D tier Marvel movie is still a good movie. It's still enjoyable, it's still rewatchable, it's still something that you can go back and have a fun time. And so I would absolutely say that this is a movie that people should go see. It's very fun. If you don't like Marvel, but you like kind of like spy, espionage, intrigue, it's a really fun movie. And they do make a lot of fun of kind of these tropes that are happening within Marvel. With Yelena keeps joking about her, like she drops down in like the lunge pose and then flips her hair up, and how stupid it is that she does that. She tries that at one point in the movie and it fails. She's like, "This is so silly." I don't know. It's still a fun and enjoyable movie, and I would recommend people go see it. It's still a good movie. Um, Dominic, quick last sentence on Black Widow.
They killed so many people in that movie. I do not want to let them go with that, by the way, because you just reminded me. The jail scene, they killed everyone in there. Okay,
Yep.
a lot of people. Not very Avenger like. Just saying.
Nope, they're not the Avengers. Natasha never really wanted to be an Avenger, though. Okay, so really quick, we're going to do 5 minutes on Space Jam, and then we'll leave the last 5 minutes for anything else that we want to talk about. All right, folks, I have never seen Space Jam before. So, just for you guys, I watched the original Space Jam with Michael Jordan,
Ooh,
and then I watched the newest Space Jam back to back. I'm going to come out and say this right now. A lot of the comments that I have seen from diehard Space Jam fans is that this is a movie for 8-year-olds. It doesn't have to be a good story. And I think that that is absolutely false. There are plenty of fantastic children's movies with incredible storytelling that are enjoyable for adults and 8-year-olds. And I personally think that if you think that children are stupid and that's a good excuse, then I I really disagree with that, because children are a lot smarter than you realize and they enjoy good storytelling. Look at, the Disney Renaissance era. Those are good stories packed with good music, good characters. It's a fully fleshed out story. Space Jam is clearly trying to do one thing, especially in the second movie, which is have Warner Brothers push its properties. And while that felt fun to me at times, like I don't know, them like flying in a spaceship and going to pick people up in Wonder Woman to go pick them up. And oh god, I think they did Pulp Fiction at one point, maybe. Um, I I don't know. I paused it at the hour mark and I went, my god, there's still another hour. There's still another hour in this movie, and then the last hour was better, but it still wasn't great. I don't know how you feel, Dominic.
this was an hour and 55 minutes of a
Yeah.
roller coaster. Because I agree with when this movie first started, and we get LeBron James, in his family introduction, immediately I went, "Oh God!" Like, no, I don't want to watch this anymore. Because that introductory scene was pretty bad acting. And in my opinion, LeBron definitely got better throughout the movie, and I agree with you. Those last hour, right when the kind of the main basketball game, which was really long, that game just kept going and going. Um,
My
when
god.
that game started, the movie it definitely picked up, and it got a little bit better. But I mean, at the end of the day, like I don't want to write this off, like kind of like what you were saying. I don't want to write this off as a kids movie. It's just kind of whatever. I mean, it does have some pretty decent parts to it. It does have its message of you need to be you, and kind of a more modern mentality of like don't stick to the rules. Be what makes you
Right.
you. And but there are I mean, I'm not a parent, but if I had a child and I wanted to teach them that lesson, this would be the thing I introduce them to. Um, that being said, if I had a kid who was into this movie, I don't think I'd be against it. There's
No.
really nothing wrong with it. Um, but
It's fun.
what? What was that?
I said it's fun.
Yeah, it is fun. And then obviously seeing all the characters like Clockwork Orange characters in the background that should not be in a kids movie, but are there, is kind of cool and like the Matrix references, stuff like that. Um, but overall, I mean, the movie has at least my biggest L for this movie, like the biggest loss, is that they didn't have a single Bill Murray reference. And then they couldn't get Michael Jordan, but they did have a scene where they introduced Michael B. Jordan, which is really funny. That scene I actually really did like. But beyond that, if you're a big fan of Space Jam, definitely check out the second one. If you have kids, it's definitely a fun movie. There's nothing wrong with it. Uh,
Yeah.
but it's for me personally, it's not a movie I'm going to reach out to watch again. I personally wouldn't watch the first one again. Um, but if you have HBO Max and you have maybe some young ones around, it's a fun movie. I don't think it's a waste of time, but I wouldn't watch
No.
it by yourself. I think there's plenty of other things to check out.
It's definitely a fun afternoon for your kids. And
Hmm.
if you grew up on Space Jam, I think that that is a great time for you because it's clearly a nostalgia play. Um, it has Looney Toony. It's a Looney Tunes movie, so you expect the same kind of gags that you expect from Looney Tunes. Like personally, I didn't need Porky Pig rapping, but it was kind of fun, I guess. I
Yeah,
just wish that they had packed that kind of fun into the first half of the movie because I think they spend so much time with LeBron James going fundamentals, fundamentals, fundamentals that you don't really get the joy that
yeah.
that you should be getting out of it in the first place. I did not have as many issues with LeBron as you did. I thought that he actually did a pretty good
Hmm.
job. Um, but to each their own, I guess. Um, yeah,
I mean,
it's I wouldn't pay money for it, but if it's out on a streaming service and you have it, check it out. It is fun, but not fun enough that I would revisit Space Jam or Space Jam 2, and I know that we'll probably get a lot of thoughts for those opinions. Um, Finally, Dominic, what have you been watching this week that we did not have time to talk about, whether it's current or you picked it up recently?
well, I actually haven't really been watching that much. I've only been watching one show, and that is Atypical. My girlfriend introduced it to me, and I think the show's been around a while. I think I mentioned it to you, and you said it's actually kind of old. I failed to look up the dates of when like the latest season came out. But for those of you who don't know what it is, it's a kind of a comedy drama kind of thing. It's on Netflix. It deals with its main character has autism and the family around it, like how they deal with it, and I don't want to say like deal with it, but like how the family works and kind of like the situations that ensue. And you grow up with this character going through his senior year of high school and then transitioning into college. It's only four
Mhm.
seasons. It's not long. It has its dramatic, heartfelt moments. There's definitely plenty of episodes where I've like grabbed my chest like oh but it's a feel good show too. All the characters are super interesting, even the ones that you're not supposed to like. Um, I think it's a really good, excellently acted show, and it's just a nice change of pace from superheroes and athletes going into a multi-dimensional universe to play basketball. So if you're looking for something a little bit different, I highly recommend Atypical. I'm absolutely obsessed with
Awesome. I know on my end, I decided to download Peacock for the free trial, and
it.
I checked out a TV show called Doctor Death, which is based on a real story, actually. And it's like Alec Baldwin. It's got a couple of other big names in it. I watched the first three episodes that you get free, and I'm kind of tapping my toe over here. I want to watch more. It's about this doctor who is maiming his patients. He's killing his patients. He's doing horrible things to them. And the two doctors who are trying to get his license revoked and figure out why. And so it's got this really nice, tense drama going on to it where you really want to figure out why is this guy the way he is? Why is he making these choices? Um, it's really interesting. I also checked out Mr. Mercedes. That's on Peacock as well, although it didn't originally premiere on Peacock. If you're into serial killers, it's about this cop who is retired and he is haunted by um, this case that he wasn't able to solve. A guy in a clown mask in a Mercedes Benz, rolled up and killed 16 people. He just plowed through them in the car while these people were there at like 4 a.m. waiting to go to a job fair. And finally, I also checked out Changeland. That's another old movie with Seth Green
Mhm.
and Macaulay Culkin and Brenda Song, actually. And I can't remember the other guy's name. And it was great, like completely incredible. Guy finds out his wife is cheating on him, goes with his best friend to Thailand, and it could have been super cheesy and very like heartfelt, but it felt very real and funny, and I really enjoyed it. Finally, on Apple TV, Schmigadoon is coming out soon, which I am excited for. It's a musical TV show. So if you're into that, you can check that out. Also, coming out July 29th, we've got Transformers, The War for Cybertron Kingdom, which I know, Dominic, you're really excited for.
Oh yeah.
Jungle Cruise comes out on July 30th. I'm looking forward to that because I love The Rock. He's always entertaining. Suicide Squad, John Cena's going to be in it. That's on August 6th. And then also Free Guy and Don't Breathe both premiere on August 13th. Free Guy will be in Disney and in theaters, and Don't Breathe 2 will just be in theaters, and Suicide Squad you will be able to catch on HBO Max or in theaters. I might be taking my butt out to the theater to go see Suicide Squad because I think that that's going to be a lot of fun, even though the first movie was kind of rough. Uh, we are just about out of time. Is there anything else you want to say, Dominic?
Nah. Just if you like what you hear today, please be sure to check out the N.E.R.D Gaming Podcast, which is also available where it's myself and our co-host Brian, and we talk about video games.
That's right. We've got N.E.R.D gaming. We have got N.E.R.D movie and TV. If you have liked what you have heard today, like, share, subscribe. You can catch us on Spotify, Apple or not, or Apple Music or Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Hopefully, we'll be getting more videos to you. I will hopefully be off of this headset next time with better audio. My name is Kayla Smith. I have been your host today with my co-host Dominic Spaziri. Nerd out.